Hey everybody, welcome back to Dave and Will's Guitar. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for watching this video. Today I had something on my mind. I was thinking about brand loyalty, and I can't feel any other way than just keep going back to the idea that it's dumb. I don't like it. And I know that might rub people the wrong way, but hear me out. I really wanted to just talk about these ideas. You know, I'm not trying to make people inadvertently angry or just, purposely stir the pot, but I feel like we see a lot of major brands, and I'm not going to get into all the whole stuff that's going on recently with all the other major brands. I mean, I might talk about it on its side, but not really directly address it. But we see a lot of people who seem to think that the things they own represent some part of who they are. Now, I know that by buying a brand and by investing money into it, we want to feel like we made a good purchase and that we spent our money wisely. And that is important. And I agree that that is something we all like to feel, right? We don't want to feel like we bought something and just wasted a ton of money. And, especially with the guitar and the guitar community, there's a lot of attitude that just comes out based on what you play and what that means to the person you are or whatever. And frankly, none of that matters. None of it matters. It really just doesn't. The most important guitar, brand or otherwise, you will ever own is the one you like. That's it. It doesn't matter what's on the headstock. If you like it, and that's the guitar you will play and you will enjoy. And it doesn't matter what anyone says. Flat out, that's it, point blank, period. But that doesn't mean that we should fall in love with a brand so hard that we are willing to overlook its flaws, much like a terrible relationship. And that's what it seems to be like for a lot of folks. Now, if I was going to talk about Fender and Gibson, they have certainly had an illustrious history and tons of people that have used their brands and made major bands and major albums, major songs that have been the zeitgeist of many eras and decades of music that we should respect, right? Those instruments definitely played a key role in some of those songs. But that doesn't give them the ability to then make worse instruments in the future and then subsequently sell them with the idea that we are getting anywhere close to the same quality. I've seen so many things come through this house. I do a lot of repair work. And I've noticed that some of the major brands are about on par or worse than some of the cheaper ones. Now, that isn't a statement that's true for everything. It's not like every major brand is offering just crap gear. I've just noticed that there seems to be no better guitar for the money when you buy a bigger name brand. And that I find frankly disturbing because name brands generally carry a higher price associated with those brands, right? So what do we do about this? How do we fix it? Or, how do we tackle this issue? Well, one thing you could do is go buy a budget brand. Now, I've demoed a ton of budget brands in this house, and I will say that a lot of the mid-tier budget brands, or the budget brands, are like kind of edging into that realm. Now, are they as good as the high-end boutique brands? I'm not going to tell you that. That is not true. That is absolutely not true. So don't think that when someone says X brand is just as good as Y brand, it depends in what respect. Now, first thing I want to get out of the way, sound doesn't matter. That's not what I'm talking about. If you have a particular sound you like, definitely certain pickups, certain guitars sound a certain way, and it's certainly with switching like coil splitting and tapping and resistors and all the things you can throw in a guitar, there's nothing you can really make a good argument for because that is a purely aesthetic choice, right? What you seem to like or what you would think, seemingly enjoy is very particular to the person, right? It's particular to you or to me, right? So we really can't make any statements about that. However, I will say on the lowest tier of guitars, and certainly, and I'm not saying ceramic pickups are bad, but there tends to be cheaper parts like ceramic pickups. And while they're not bad, they certainly have a place and they even sound good. They just sound so similar to one another. And that's a little off-putting because when I get a guitar, I really want it to shine and have something unique about itself that makes it, interesting to play. But when I've played a lot of these budget brands, like certainly Firefly is a good example. People have told me on the internet, like, oh, the humbuckers are different in all these parts. I haven't found that. I've bought like 4 or 5 guitars with humbuckers from Firefly. They're all the same resistance. They seem to be all made the same way. On the back of them, they all look the same. There's no like iconography or anything on there to really tell me any different. So I don't really hear a difference outside of maybe where they're spaced on the guitar, right? Obviously, if they're closer to the neck or closer to the bridge or however that guitar is constructed, there is a slight difference, but not so much that it's like, wow, this is a whole new pickup. So in that regard, no, I don't think sonically you're really getting a whole lot of value for your money, but they are great mod platforms. And obviously, if you want to pick up a guitar and like have the initial instinct to go mod it, a Firefly is a fantastic choice, or even one of those other major budget brands. I think it's almost more worthwhile than going and buying like a very expensive name brand guitar like a Fender or Gibson. I think you'll get more bang for your buck that way, and you can kind of really decide what kind of pickup you want to put in there and get a sound that's unique to you, rather than one that is sold to you without a choice, right? So those are some things that I think are a little more interesting. When a guitar player has a guitar, at least in my experience, and this is just me personally, right? I see someone who's modded a guitar, I'm more interested in the choices they made and then what sounds they are producing. I think that's a unique thing. When I see a Gibson or a Fender or whatever name brand, you know, they're going to sound good. They are so iconic. There's such a large history of music that has those pickups in those guitars and their shape and where they're placed. You know it's going to sound like something you've remembered from your childhood, or at least within the last few decades, and you're going to be like, yeah, that sounds great. And that's cool, but if you're not making that style of music, or if you're trying to branch out and find something different, you know, how many Les Pauls can you own? How many Strats can you conceivably own? It is so cool to see someone trying to find their own unique voice in an instrument. And I feel like that's where some of the bigger brands fall short. I don't know how many reissues we need of a Strat, or how many like period correct like Les Pauls or whatever, or reissues or masterwork, master built parts or guitars. I don't care. I'm just so tired of that. You know, Fender just released their it's like a 75th anniversary, and they're like, this is the most period correct guitar we've ever made. I'm like, well, what about all those other ones you said were period correct? You know, it's like, were those just not good and now this is the best? I can't be convinced to buy that kind of stuff. For me, it's not that I'm only looking for modern sounds or modern features. It's just something different. Now, I know someone out there will say, well, they're copying the Strat. They're making all these copies. It's not the body shape that I'm really looking for. It's really in the things that I think make more of a playability difference and a sound difference, right? So when I talk about playability, a Strat is a comfortable shape. I don't really need that to be more defined than what it already is. And honestly, other than the neck heel joint of most Strats, there's not a whole lot, because the comfort carve's already there. It's a fantastic, might be one of the best body styles ever made. It just truly is. But some of the things they don't do on their lower end brands is offer things like stainless steel frets. In fact, if you want to get stainless steel frets, I can't remember if it's the Mod Collection or whatever in Fender, you generally have to spend over $1,000. Now, there's a whole bunch of brands that are budget brands that are offering things like stainless steel frets, locking tuners, better quality nuts, not just like the plastic garbage ones, and a lot of other comfort carves or what have you at a much lower price, like rolled fingerboard edges, all that kind of stuff. And you can get that guitar, like a Sire, for under $800 or $850 or something like that. You know, that is really cool. Or a Firefly, if you're so inclined. Now, if you think I'm sitting here saying all these budget brands are out competing, they're only out competing really in those price points. I don't think Firefly makes the best guitar. I'm not going to say that. I would not say that. I would say PRS might make the best guitar, or if we're going to go with a budget brand, and if I have to pick a brand that's really under a certain price, I would say a mid-tier brand Sire is probably one of the best guitars I've played at that price point. And I've tried many guitars at this point. I feel like the features they offer, the sounds that are coming out of those pickups, they're like Alnico 5, Alnico 2 magnets, the comfort carves, the weight relief, stainless steel frets, locking to all those things that I just mentioned. They're all getting placed on those guitars, those Sire guitars, and you can get them for a very, very good deal. And in fact, if you get those guitars and you put better pickups in them, I feel like you can probably get something that is much nicer quality than what you'd buy from one of those bigger brands that we mentioned earlier. So that's the thing that's concerning to me, is I don't think the major brands are really keeping up. And it's not like they can't go to Cortec or one of these overseas factories and say, hey, we need all these features at a price. If Firefly can do it, Fender can certainly do it, but they're relying on their name and they have certain budgets that they're trying to make, and they have a certain amount of guitars they expect to sell, and certainly shareholders to make happy. I mean, if you don't make those rich people richer, it's not good. It's really bad for them. And in fact, that's the most, when you think about Fender, and you need to be very aware of this, when they make and sell you a guitar, the most group of, or most concerns that they have, the foremost concerns they have about all that is, are the shareholders going to make money? That is number one every time. It is going to be number one. So does the guitar take a backseat? Yes. If you'll buy it, it certainly will. As long as they can get you to buy it, they are going to sell you whatever they can. If it means slapping period correct on there, and that's in lieu of like quote features or whatever, they're gonna do it. Phil McKnight had an interesting comment. He said, Fender is a company it's a guitar company that wants to sell you a t-shirt. And that is absolutely true. They want you to buy into a lifestyle. And that to me is just, it's cool to wear like guitar shirts, right? I don't mind that. It's just that they're trying to tell you that the thing you buy is the thing you are. And that's very dumb. You are not the things you own. And it doesn't matter what you play. I don't care what someone has in their hands when they're playing. If they're a good musician and it sounds great, and there's plenty of sounds, plenty of amps, plenty of guitars that sound fantastic. And sometimes it's just the knowledge I don't have of what a guitar can do. But in the right hands, and I've seen it done many, many times, you can take an instrument that I've never heard of, or someone else hasn't heard of, or a seemingly crappy instrument, and make incredible music with it. I mean, there's so many examples. I'm not even going to go into all of them. There are bands within the last 20, 30, 40 years of people that have, like major bands that have picked up guitars that were not well known, not well respected, played them on stage, and then everybody wanted them. And that goes for pedals, it goes for guitars, it goes for amps. It just takes the right player to make the instrument what it is. Now, playability-wise, that is not necessarily true. Sound-wise, yes, but if a guitar is coming into your house or coming into your guitar store and you pick it up and there are problems, and there are a lot of common problems I see on a bunch of guitars. Certainly, if you're not buying a guitar over like $1,000 to $1,500, it is somewhat likely there are going to be fret problems, whether it's sprout, whether it's, at a minimum, or well, I guess at the least concerning would be like a rolled fretboard edge. They're just not going to do it on a cheaper instrument. And that's fine. It's still playable, but it's not as comfortable. But sprouted fret ends are not good. Those should be corrected. Like frets that are not perfectly level, that is concerning. The fact that I have to sit here and think that if I walk into a guitar store, that I pick up any brand new guitar and the frets are not level is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It is so incredibly stupid that anyone falls for that, or that's allowed to happen. I can't say fall for it. I mean, most people that are picking up guitars, they don't know. I don't carry a fret rocker into a guitar store. But if you want the best action you can get on a guitar, and you want a guitar that's very playable, those things they're just a necessity, frankly. If you don't have level frets, if they're completely like way out of whack, then you're going to have major problems playing because you're going to have buzzing and all these other things. But at a minimum, they should be at least mostly level. And yes, most guitars tend to be mostly level, but they're not the most level. In fact, if you look at the major brands, like it doesn't matter what it is, pick Gibson, Fender, Martin, Taylor, whatever. Taylor's pretty good. I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna throw them out there. They make really great instruments. But some of the major brands, when you check out the frets, they aren't perfectly level, and I know Gibson does do the Plek machine now on a certain level. I can't remember. I think it might be all American made guitars. So it's not necessarily the tops that are having a level issue. Generally, they're actually pretty good. But I have seen like binding issues or fret end issues. Now, not on the Les Paul, obviously they have fret nibs, so you're not going to feel the binding on those. They actually tend to be a little bit better. But there's like tooling marks, which is like crazy on like a $3,000 instrument, or there'll be like scuff marks in places. I mean, it's just not the careful care and consideration of a $3,000 instrument. Now, are those like very minimal things? Yeah, who cares, right? It's just a cosmetic defect, and that is certainly more forgivable. But on Fender and some other ones, I've seen guitars that are not necessarily level and do have fret sprout. But of course, this is more in their like mid-tier budget brand. I bought probably, I would say like 6, 7 months ago, I bought a Fender Acoustasonic, the Jazz Master Body one. And the neck was perfect. The neck had no fret sprout. It was perfectly level. It was a very, very good instrument. It's too bad I didn't like it because the sounds out of it, it's cool for live gigs and stuff, but it just doesn't hit as well as like a truly like acoustic instrument, a truly acoustic guitar, like a full-on acoustic. For some reason, I like the playability was really good, but the sound was just, it's so close. It's close, but it's like, I think I just really want an acoustic guitar, and I was happy with that. So it wasn't for me, and that's fine. However, I've played and fixed a lot of Made in Mexico Strats over the last few years, and I can't say a lot, maybe like 4 or 5 now. But like 4 out of 5 had like major fretwork that needed to be done. And that's not okay. You know, with Squier, what they're trying to sell you is a guitar that is like, hey, here's this brand. It's a sister brand to Fender. And if you think about how they present those, they sell you a Squier by its own creation, they do not want to put Fender on that headstock because they want you to know you're buying a lesser quality instrument. It's not equivalent, it's different, and it's not as good, and you have to get into a Fender, right? And I don't understand that. Now, I will say for PRS is on the headstock regardless. And no one, and there's a subgroup of people that are like troglodyte, like people that live under bridges, and they'll tell you like, a PRS SE isn't a PRS. I'm like, oh, I think Paul Reed Smith is getting paid the same regardless of what guitar that says PRS is sold. He's very happy with those guitars, and he's happy that people buy them. And honestly, the quality of those guitars, for me, I think it's very fair to say that if you prefer a PRS SE, because they do have different sized necks, different neck profiles, and different sounding pickups slightly, it would make sense to say I prefer one of these over the other. And I've mentioned that before. I really like the PRS SE Silver Sky tones. And my favorite PRS is a PRS SE Custom 24. I like the SE Custom 24 pickups better than the US made ones. They just sound so good. They're fantastic. They sound so good. So with that being said, I don't know if Epiphone and Squier are really in the same category of what PRS is trying to do as far as their budget brands as it's affiliated with their expensive brands. And you know, that makes me think, it's like, if I'm a new guitar player, I walk in your store and I buy an Epiphone or I buy a Squier, I know that I'm not getting the same thing as a Fender. Like, you're purposely giving me something that you don't think is as good as your other like parent brand, right? Well, so that's concerning. And then you're gonna sell me a guitar that probably needs a lot of work. In fact, I'm gonna buy it and it's going to be, quote, brand new. And the first thing that has to happen is a setup, which is okay. That's not, I don't love it, but it's fine. You have to tell people like, oh, that guitar's not ready to play. You're like, what? It's brand new. No, it's not ready to play. You gotta get the action dialed in, the intonation. Those change from climate, you know, how the neck moves as it's shipped, I understand. But they will sell you a guitar with bad fretwork, and that's ridiculous. I just don't understand how that ever leaves the factory. I just don't get it. As a budding enthusiast of music or a budding musician, you need to give them an instrument that plays well. You must do this. They will not play them. Fender had a interesting comment. They released some information about like new players, right? What they found with new players. They said something like 90% of people that play guitar or buy a guitar quit after the first year. And I was like, wow, to me, that's kind of nuts, right? I mean, you play for 1 year and you quit, and then, well, okay, what were all the factors that make you want to quit? Certainly guitar is hard, and it's not for everybody, and it's an instrument that really requires a lot of dedication. I'm not even as dedicated as I want to be. But the other half of that, I feel like, is, yeah, of course Fender's saying that. They're making guitars that are student level that need work immediately, and not everyone can go afford that. And when you hand them an instrument, if the guitar is fighting them and doesn't feel good to play, and maybe it doesn't sound as good as what they thought it might need to sound like, why would they continue to play? It just doesn't make any sense. Of course they wouldn't want to play. It's not a fun instrument to play. So, I don't know. To me, it strikes me as so odd the way this whole guitar industry is modeled in some of those respects. Now, granted, I don't know everything about guitar manufacturing. I know a lot about manufacturing, period. I've worked in some major manufacturing industries before, so I understand that part. But some of the ideas and ideologies of what we think about brands, I think really needs to change. And those are some of the ones that I had mentioned. Now, back to really getting more focused on the topic of big brands. I think that if you're a player and you identify with your guitar in that you love it, right? You really enjoy playing it. It doesn't mean you should love it forever. And even the next guitar you buy, it doesn't mean that it's going to be quality. Now, it might, through experience, tell you, yes, you're more likely to have quality, but not every PRS I've played has been like perfect. Most of them are very good, but not everyone has been perfect. I've had ones that are not as good as others. So I have a PRS S2 McCarty 594 thin line. The frets were not perfectly leveled. They were very close. There was a little rocking, and I wanted that action just a hair lower, so I leveled the fretboard. Now, granted, that guitar was used, but it was made the same year I bought it, and it did not have a lot of play wear. It couldn't, when I bought it, and it was the 2024 release, I bought it like maybe, gosh, 4 or 5 months after it released. So, I mean, there was almost no fret wear, so it wasn't that. And it just needed a little love with the with some fret filing to get it really in line. And after that, it plays great. So I'm not going to tell you that every PRS that I've played is perfect, but the vast majority I play are very good, and they do not have these problems. So yes, there's hesitation there for any brand, and we should always hesitate with anything we buy. If you're going to buy a guitar, you're going to spend your hard-earned cash, you should have expectations of what it should be, and you should absolutely expect the very most for what you're paying. We don't need to be nice to big brain companies. We don't owe them anything, and they don't owe us anything either. This is the transaction. They give us a guitar, and if we, assuming we like it, then that is a good transaction. They give us a guitar that we pay for, and we should like it. Now, if they give you a guitar that's brand new, and there's problems that we didn't expect, because when we get a guitar, it should be playable, and if it's got these problems that I'd mentioned before, then that's not a good transaction. And we should remember those transactions. We shouldn't just settle and say like, well, all guitars need setups and fretwork, Don't do that. Send it back. Get what you pay for and expect the highest quality for your dollar. I feel like, for the most part, I can trust PRS that their setups are going to be very good. Now, does that mean I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna be like, I believe this is completely perfect and I'm not gonna use a fret rocker to check it? No, I'm gonna check it. I'm gonna do that. And I'm gonna try to dial in the action. First thing I'll actually do is like dial in an action that I find comfortable or low and then play it. And then if that's not acceptable, then yeah, I'll grab a fret rocker and be like, well, are these perfectly level? So do the things in the correct order. So I have a feeling that guitar brands are really changing. We've seen different attitudes. I mean, the people who owned the companies, these major brands that we used to, that we love, or those people that love those brands, obviously the guys who started those companies, they're not with us anymore. And the attitude of what guitars need to be it always does this with any like major brand, right? They get big, they get huge, they sell off to some major like holdings company or like something like that. And when that happens, the first thing to go is the quality. And that's just the nature of the beast. That is what happens. And when that quality goes, we get things like t-shirts. We get things like lifestyle gear, lifestyle instruments and things like that. It's not just the instrument itself. Firefly is not going to release a Firefly t-shirt. They're not doing it, dude. Not going to happen. So I don't know. Here's my biggest fear, and I don't know if anyone's ever talked about this on YouTube, but eventually Paul Reed Smith will die. And when he dies, he will not be able to like oversee his brand, right? And I guarantee he has a ton of input. If there's one thing that man is, it's opinionated. And I can guarantee you, if he doesn't like something that's going on in his company, he probably complains very vocally about that. But when he goes, I have a feeling if someone doesn't pick up the mantle, or if, some conglomerate or some, major company buys them out, and they have a bunch of stakeholders, the first thing to go is going to be the quality. That's going to be the first thing you see to leave the instrument. Is they're going to try to get people who are invested in the company emotionally to buy instruments and be like, these are great. Look at all these new ideas that are garbage, or new ideas that are like, we brought you all these new features, but we sacrificed a lot of quality. So I hope you'll like it. And also, we're charging you more. I have a feeling that'll happen if Paul Reed Smith doesn't have the right precautions taken, or if maybe John Higginbotham picks up the company. I don't know if he's even younger than Paul Reed Smith. I don't know. One of those guys needs to do something to make sure that his instruments stay as good quality as they are now. So, with Leo Fender, we can't really get his opinion on what Fender is today. And I would really like to know. I would love to see what Leo Fender would have said about Fender nowadays. Unfortunately, we can't dig him up and ask him because that's not going to work. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts on the big, expensive brands. Are they the most evil companies ever? No, they're not evil. They're not necessarily bad. It's just, if you're going to spend your money, I would say get what you think is the best bang for your buck. We all operate in different price points. We all have different financial choices and goals we have to meet and accept. But I think a playable, good sounding instrument is something that should be affordable. So anyway, with that, guys, thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you again in the next one. Thanks.